Welcome into 785 Live, the final 785 Live of the year, the final Crossroads show of the year. I am Adam Dravetta. Joined alongside me is GJ Amelia. Mike Mackey's here. Griffin Hughes is running the operation. Nick Cousins here, and of course Kevin Gray is here. And on a special note, it is my final show as a KU Jayhawk. So we have some Royals talk, we have some NFL draft talk, some MLB talk, and of course we'll be talking about all of our local KU sports right here at home. Plus, I might ruin it for everybody and curse on the air. Keep it right here. This is 785 Live.
785, 785, 785, 785. Woo! We about to get it. We about to get it. It's going to be a great show today.
What? They have Welcome back into 785 Live. As I said earlier, I am Adam Dravetta alongside GJ Amelia. GJ, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Bummed that it's the last show, but let's send it off on a good note.
There you go. So we're going to start off that good note with a little baseball talk versus Baylor. The Jayhawks lost 2 of 3 to the Bears this past weekend. Managed to get the win on Friday night, but came up short on both Saturday and Sunday. The Jayhawks right now are 20-26 and not looking like they will have any postseason play. They struggled in Big 12 play, struggled all the way to 10th, and therefore will not be in the Big 12 tournament and obviously won't find themselves a home in the NCAA tournament. Softball actually got swept by Baylor, but they are still looking like they have a good shot of making the NCAA tournament. It's just at this point a matter of seeding, losing a little bit of momentum. And of course, we'll be talking about some KU rowing. First, let's start it off with what we saw against Baylor this weekend on the baseball diamond out at Hoagland Ballpark. And we got some highlights for you right here. As you can see, KU got themselves going with quite a few strikeouts and nice little hit there. Leads things off, going to score a run. This is the Friday night game.
KU baseball really taking...
Offense looked good. Connor McKay doing his thing, hitting around, hitting home runs. What else is new, though? There's a double right there. And he has no doubt been the star of this KU baseball team all year. He's got a bright future for sure.
KU's really taking a step back this year, but a lot to build up to.
So it's looking like he will head off to a really good career in the major leagues. There's a nice little sidewinder pitch right there. Finishing it off. So the Jayhawks move to 1-0 in the series as Rich Price hands off the lineup, and we are looking at some highlights Saturday. Getting things going early with a nice little strikeout. Looks like the Jayhawks might have a good showing there, but if they're showing highlights of the fans, that must mean the team did not do very well. So there's a double off Drew Moravec coming in. Triple, actually. Look at that. Slides in with the speed, but he is out. He went for the triple, but did not get it. Another home run there, and the kid with the face paint is thrilled. Michael Tinsley really coming along well as a catcher. That's something the Jayhawks have to look forward to. As I said, Connor McKay looking like he's heading to the league, but here's an example right there. Look at that play. The athleticism nearly got him. Just a little too fast though, but Tinsley clearly athletic enough to do some damage in the Big 12 going forward.
Yeah, and Tinsley, a lot of shoes to fill, filling Kiana Aldrich graduating last year. So Tinsley, bright future.
So now we're moving on to the rubber match. Baylor in their fancy schmancy gold uniforms. Caught in the rundown right there. And there's some good defense by your Jayhawks. Hot dog race. Once again, if they're showing highlights to the fans, the team must have not done very well. But there were some highlights on the Jayhawks end. A nice little single past the shortstop there. Who else but Connor McKay, that man, going crazy with the bat.
Batting 364, no less. That's a very high mark. Very great future for Connor McKay.
And here he comes scoring all the way from first. So he's got the speed, he's got the power, he's got the bat.
Ketchup or mustard?
Oh, I'm mustard all the way.
Oh, yeah.
And did I say something about speed? How about that catch right there? And we'll finish off these highlights on a good note with a nice home run. Unfortunately, the Jayhawks did not come up with the victory on Sunday. Baylor takes the series 2-1, and the Jayhawks fell to 20-25 over, or 19-26 overall, I beg your pardon. Win last night brought them to 20-26. So tough year for the Jayhawks baseball program. What are we looking at going ahead, GJ?
Well, I mean, going ahead, you always have Rich Price, and Rich Price is an incredible coach. Even with the 19 wins this year, I mean, he still picked up his 400th win. Very, very well-known, good coach. And, I mean, he's got plenty of young talent ahead, Tinsley among them, that really can kind of push this program in the right direction.
Yeah, they've got some talent, and I think that's, if you've got a good guy guiding the way, then you're going to be in a good position no matter what. So Nick, what do you think of? Beg your pardon. We're going to go to Kevin. Kevin, what did you think of the Jayhawks? The year's not over yet, but it really is looking like no postseason play. So just building for next year.
You know, it was the pitching that hurt them the most. The bats were consistently there, pretty consistently there, I should say. They would get lots of hits, even a bunch of home runs. But the pitching, as it hurts teams in the MLB, hurt Kansas baseball so often, it would just come back to bite them, and they couldn't ever get over the hump on the bump. And put batters away and keep them from scoring runs and scoring those insurance runs that stop you from coming back. So going forward, they need to work on the pitching definitely, because their bats are there for sure.
And the thing about those bats is they're absolutely going to be tested this weekend, as the Jayhawks will play Texas Christian. TCU, obviously a phenomenal pitching staff. Royals fans know about Brandon Finnegan. Even though they lost him after last year, they're still looking like a dominant pitching staff and a team that you might find in Omaha at the end of the year. So the Jayhawks have a real bright test, and here's some probable starters for you. Ben Krauth will take on Tyler Alexander in Game 1. Drew Moravec against Preston Morrison in Game 2. Jayhawks not quite sure who they're going to trot out there in Game 3 yet, but they will be going up against the Horned Frogs' Alex Young. So Preston Morrison is a guy that I'm going to keep my eye on for sure. Drew Moravec will have his hands full against him. Preston Morrison, one of the best young arms in all of the country. So, GJ, I wanted to ask you, with such a great TCU team looming, a lot of times a young team can build some momentum, and the players going forward, obviously there are some players that won't be back, but the guys that will be coming back going forward, they have the opportunity to really create a good memory of beating a great TCU team, maybe taking 2 of 3, and then not only having a great memory, but having some confidence as they go into work on the off season.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that they have at least some success against this lineup of 3 pitchers. I mean, because this entire pitching staff is so good throughout, and if they can. I mean, even if they don't win a game, if they consistently have success hitting the ball, maybe knock home a couple home runs, compete, score some runs against this team, make TCU outscore you, then I think that's a way to get a lot of confidence going into the rest of the season and then next year.
Yeah, and I think that's about as exactly what I was going to say. Connor McKay against these pitchers will also get a great opportunity to showcase his talent as he hopes to make him a nice MLB career for himself. Certainly some scouts will be at that game, and that's something that they will want to. That's something that scouts will want to look at, is Connor McKay against great pitching like that. So now we're going to head over to Kevin Gray, and he's going to talk a little KU softball for us. The softball team also played Baylor. Unfortunately, they were swept this past weekend. So Kevin, talk a little about that.
Yeah, they started the season off great, but as of late, they haven't been able to keep the momentum up. And like Adam alluded to, they got swept. And the first game, they lost 2-4, so a low-scoring affair. Then the second one, they lost 1-6, so that was a little more of a blowout. And then the final game, they got shut out 7-0, and so they just kept not showing up even more and more disappointing and less encouraging. So the pitching is not there like with the baseball team, and now the bats have gone cold too, and that's definitely not what you want to see for going into postseason play when your pitching and your bats are off. That spells doom. Wouldn't you agree, GJ?
Yeah, I would agree. And the one thing, especially approaching towards postseason, there is no Big 12 tournament in softball, so they're just going to hop right into their region, wherever that may be, and it's looking like there might be a Georgia looming as the 1 seed in their region, because it's split 4 teams per region, and the 1 seed will be Georgia top 15 SEC team, and we all know how good SEC teams are at softball and baseball. I mean, you have Florida, you have Georgia. Tennessee has been historically good.
Yeah.
And so...
there's the bracket, or bracketology, I beg your pardon, as we speak. This is from College Sports Madness, the softball bracketology. Georgia, the 1 seed. So if this pans out, the games would take place in Athens, Georgia. Kansas looking at a 2 seed, Kennesaw State and Iona rounded out. So this is one of those things where Georgia, as you said, an SEC team, not up there with say the likes of Florida, who did great against the Jayhawks earlier this year. Still a really formidable foe though, but I think the Jayhawks should have their eyes set on advancing to a super regional if indeed they are able to do that. So that's one of those things that you really need to, if you want to build your program to the next level, making the tournament's great. The Jayhawks were able to make the tournament last year. If they can come out and advance beyond the regional and into the super regional, that would be huge for this program.
Yeah, and I think the main goal, obviously, you just want to focus on who's in front of you, and it looks like it's going to be Kennesaw State. They need to get by Kennesaw State and then really focus on Georgia, because I don't really see a version where Iona knocks out Georgia. But I really do think it's going to be KU, Georgia. And if they can pull off that series win, I mean, maybe they could rattle off a couple of wins and do some damage.
Absolutely. So now let's, as you mentioned, Georgia, one of the top teams. Well, the Jayhawks played another top team this weekend in the Baylor Bears. And this was a true test for them, and if they are going to make that jump and get beyond that regional, it's going to take beating teams like this. So as you can see, it was a beautiful weekend in Lawrence, Kansas, out at Rock Chalk Park. And I believe this was Alicia Pilley, I beg your pardon, out there on the mound, getting things going. She's been a great presence out there for the Jayhawks all this year.
Yeah, she really has. She's added a new key.
Yeah, and she has she's 4th on the all-time strikeout list in KU history. So, she's a great pitcher, but she's supported by some defense right there. As you can see, a nice catch in the outfield along the foul line, and a little more defense coming here. Nice catch there in the outfield.
And you know, it is unfortunate a little bit the past 2 weekends with getting swept by Baylor, and then the prior weekend you have the great win on Friday against Oklahoma, the walk-off home run, and then you come out on Saturday and you get run ruled, and then not much better on Sunday. So it's just unfortunate. Lost 5 straight.
And maybe the worst part of that is with such a great pitching performance and such a great, you know, we saw the great defensive plays this weekend. They could not get anything going offensively. They didn't score a single run this entire weekend, and that is going to be a problem.
Absolutely. They got to get their hitting going. I mean, no matter how good pitching is by Alicia Pilley, you got to score some runs to win.
You know, it's one of those things that not only were they not able to put rallies together, their power hitting wasn't there either. And that's one, you know, obviously the most efficient way to get runs. You hit a home run, you score off one swing of the bat, and again, you see some more dominant pitching right there, but unfortunately, still nothing going from the offensive end. And the Baylor Bears were able to sweep the Kansas Jayhawks. So let's go over now again to Kevin Gray, and Kevin, you just talked about the future. Let's head backwards a little bit and talk about the past. What did you see in this series against Baylor?
Well, you mentioned that they didn't score any runs. They scored 3 actually, but that's still not going to get it done, especially against the ranked team like Baylor, who was 15th in the nation. No matter how well Alicia Pilley is pitching, you've got to score those runs, and they weren't able to do that on top of the unraveling of the pitching, and so it just compiled, and they really didn't even show up in the series, which is disappointing because they started out the season so well, and now, I mean, they still have, you know, hope for making a super regional, but based on what I saw in the Baylor series, my hopes are dwindling. I just want to see Alicia Pilley keep fighting to get her control and her back, and so I'm looking forward, as the season ends, to Alicia finding her groove, and then hopefully the bats heating up again.
Well, thank you, Kevin. We're going to move on to some rowing highlights as we only have a few seconds left before the break, so let's get right to it. For the first time in 4 years, the Jayhawks were able to beat Kansas State in the Sunflower Showdown. I don't care what sport it is, if you beat a rival, that is a good thing. So it was 14-9 was the final score, and you see quite a few close races there. And the interesting thing is every single race was won. As I just mentioned, it was close, but actually Kansas won every single race by 45 seconds. So as I was saying with that last shot looked close, but it actually was not. Kansas dominated in all their races, in the races that they won, winning each one, as I said, by at least 45 seconds. And winning the match overall 14-9. So a great weekend for the Jayhawks. So now you're heading into the Big 12 championship with an interesting celebration there, and really cool. Really cool to beat a rival. So that's our first segment for the day. We're going to be right back after we kick it to break. You're watching 785 Live.
Here we don't have an Adam Schefter, a Mark Kuiper, or a Todd McShay, but we do have a Kevin Gray. Welcome into 785 Live alongside Kevin Gray. I'm Nick Cousin. Welcome back into 785 Live. 24 minutes strong here.
Yeah. Kevin, Nick, Mike, myself, and Nicole, of course. Thank you so much.
Welcome back into 785 Live, and as you saw in the first segment, a lot of goings on here in Lawrence, Kansas, with a lot of Jayhawk sports. But now let's branch out, head down I-70 a little bit, and talk about those Kansas City Royals. They fell to 17-10 last night with a loss at the hands of the Cleveland Indians, 10-3. Another tough start from their starter, Danny Duffy. Overall, the starting rotation's been roughed up a little bit this year. Edinson Volquez didn't make it out of the third today, and but right now, however, the Royals are leading 7-4. So here are these highlights from last night. Home run after home run for the Cleveland Indians. There you see one right there. And now you have Eric Hosmer with a home run of his own. So that gives the Royals the lead, but only for a brief moment. And some dominant pitching there by the Cleveland Indians. And here's Salvador Perez striking out, as we mentioned, that dominant pitching performance. 5 strikeouts there by the Royals. Another one right there. That makes number 6, I believe. Alex Gordon, the lefty, will get a hit there, however, and that will sneak through and give the Royals a 4-2 lead. And now we have some golf. That was Gary Woodland. Now here's a little bit of the exact same game we had going. And so clearly some technical issues there with the highlights, but the thing to take away from there is that Gary Woodland's a good golfer. You saw about a half second of him. But what you also saw was the Royals getting handled pretty well as they were last night. Now in game 1 of the series, they did take the Indians down, and then you have the rubber match today. As I said, at last check in the bottom of the 7th, the Royals were winning 7-4. They had the bases loaded with 2 outs. So they're 17-10, hoping to move to 18-10. We're going to send it over to Nick and Mike. And guys, what do you think of this Royal squad?
Well, you said 17-10, but that actually still keeps them in first place because mine and Mike's White Sox we beat the Tigers last night, taking 2 out of 3 out of that series. So that keeps you guys in first place. But I was at the game last night because I attended the KAB seminar last night. So I was at the game, and what I saw besides the pitching was the hitting wasn't really there. They couldn't really get anything going on the offensive side, and I think, and I mean the bullpen did great. You had Chris Young come in, and you had him come in, pitch some scoreless innings, try to keep them to come back in the game, but they couldn't get anything done. They ended up losing that game 10-3. They got clobbered, as you said. So that's my biggest takeaway is that their pitching was poor, but there's 162 games, so they can easily fix it. They got plenty of time to get it going.
Yeah, exactly. And, they still have a pretty good run differential. They're plus 40 right now, which blows away everyone else. The second best in the American League Central. That goes to the Minnesota Twins, actually, who have been a little bit hot recently. They're 8-2 in their last 10, and, we all thought that they would be the anchor of this impressive AL Central division. However, getting, a little bit back on track there. But when you look at pitching struggles, it's a little bit more concerning to me than, say, a prolonged batting slump or an extended batting slump, I should say. Because bats, they come and go, and if you have hitters that are good hitters, then they are going to become good hitters again. Pitching, it can fluctuate, but not quite as much as hitting, in my opinion. So, it's something that I would be a little bit concerned with as, a Royals fan, but they're still atop of the AL Central, and whenever you're at the top of the division, it's a good thing.
And that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about, GJ, and then we'll send it over to Kevin for some analysis of his. It's really opposite from last year, whereas last year, the Royals weren't great at the plate. Eric Hosmer had a really good second half, but overall, they struggled at the dish. It was their pitching that carried them a lot of this year. The tough thing about this poor showing by the starting rotation is that's going to hurt your bullpen because now they have to come out and throw more innings. You absolutely need five innings from every starter. You'd prefer 6. Is this going to be a problem all year?
Well, they aren't fully healthy, and they've had some, as far as the bullpen goes, with getting Holland back today.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as the whole suspensions with Volquez, and then obviously Kelvin Herrera just got suspended, or his suspension will begin today.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Yordano Ventura, some suspensions, just a lot of kind of early chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to just kind of get into a groove when you're having to not go in the same 5 guys pitching every single 5 games. So once kind of the suspensions hopefully simmer down and they just kind of get going, that'll be able to calm down the entire bullpen and pitching staff. And I mean, but right now it's not a huge problem because like we kind of talked about, the bats are working, the bats are doing their job. As long as you aren't allowing 10 runs, the bats are doing their job.
Yeah, and so now, Kevin, what are your thoughts? GJ made a good point about, there hasn't been a ton of consistency because of the suspensions, things like that. Do you think it's just a matter of that, or is there some sort of deeper problem with this starting rotation?
No, I definitely think it's just the inconsistency. They have a 5-man rotation for a reason. You have your ace and then your number 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that's where they pitch. And if you can't have your guys there for a good portion of the season, then there's going to be inconsistency with pitching, questioned roles. So once everybody comes back from suspension, and as GJ mentioned, Holland coming back from Tommy John's today, then they'll smooth out the rotation. Which, when they smooth out the rotation, that'll smooth out the bullpen because the bullpen won't have to be stretched out from the woes of the starting rotation. So once the Royals get all of their starting pitchers back, they'll be able to get back on the right road again, pitching-wise. And then what's helpful and fortunate is that our bats, or the Royals' bats, are really hot right now, except for last night. But for the most part, they're hitting really well right now, and that is carrying them. But they just need to make sure that their MO as a team for later in the season is their pitching instead of their hitting, because when they get into playoff time, you need your pitchers to be the stars of your team, not your bats.
Yeah, that's a great point when you're in those short series, and how great is it that we're talking about what the Royals are going to have to do to have success in the playoffs. That seemed like a faraway dream not too long ago. So now let's, while we have the time, let's talk a little bit about MLB as a whole. I'd like to focus on Bryce Harper starting off. Bryce Harper knocked, I think, 3 home runs yesterday. He's up to 8 on the year, on pace to smoke over 40. He's only hitting 265, but there's a lot of power there. Nick and Mike, this is by no means surprising. We've all had high expectations for Bryce Harper, and he's lived up to those expectations so far. But is he about to take a jump from just a really good player with a lot more promise? Is he getting into that Miguel Cabrera territory?
I definitely think so. You look at the last 7 days, he's had 3 home runs. That's a lot of home runs for a whole week. Batting .240. Also at home, he has 11 home runs of his own. That's a lot of home runs to be hitting at home. So I see a definite Miguel Cabrera here. And let's keep in mind, he's only 22 years old. A lot of baseball to be played in his career. So I definitely see him as a Hall of Famer someday. I know it's a bold statement, but he's definitely showing that he's the player we thought he would be when he got drafted number 1 overall 4 years ago.
And it's really, it's really incredible because he hits like Miguel Cabrera already, but he runs so much faster than him. He fields much better than him. His arm is absolutely incredible, and it's just, he's a player that really does it all. He reminds me of like an Ichiro that can do everything except he can hit home runs too. So he can really take that to the next level. When you see a young player like this develop so quickly in baseball, it's such a hot commodity because baseball is one of those sports that, sometimes takes a little bit longer. It's not your NBA or NFL where you can have a rookie come in and turn around your entire program. It takes a little bit more to feel out in baseball. So when someone picks it up that quickly, it's really impressive. So if I'm the Nationals, whatever Bryce Harper wants, you give him that money.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's going to be interesting to keep an eye on is I have his stats here. He's yet to play a full season, which is something that you're going to want to really keep an eye on. In his 2 All-Star years, that included his rookie campaign in 2012. He had 139 games. He had, I believe, 22 home runs in that one. Overall, 270 batting average, but he did have a 340 on base percentage. The next year, 274 with a 368 on base, and then 273 last year. So you can really count on him to be in that 270 area. But as I said, you can also count on quite a few home runs. Last year, he only hit 13 home runs, but he only played 100 games, whereas he had 22 home runs his rookie year in 139 games. 118 games in 2013, still was able to put out 20 home runs, so his home run productivity was actually better. His second year, he just played fewer games, so we'll be interested to see what happens with Bryce Harper as he moves on. Will he be able to play 162 games? And GJ, a player like this, is it worth, obviously it's worth it, so I don't want to, maybe I should find a better way to word that, but what does it bring to the table, a guy who, he's not going to hit a lot, but he's going to get on base a lot, and those times when he does hit, that ball is flying. We talk about those home runs, but how about 26 and 24 doubles between his rookie year and his second year? So this is what Bryce Harper brings to the table. The only thing that worries you is maybe he's not playing all 162 games. He's not even playing 150 games.
Yeah, obviously the key is to stay off the DL. But when you have a power hitter like Bryce Harper, I mean, he's not always going to get on base. He's going to maybe jump around, be a little inconsistent, but there's going to be times where it's going to be perfect. There's going to be a couple guys on base, and he's just going to launch one. It's going to hit the wall. He's going to get a double. He's going to bat in 2 runs. He's going to get a good couple RBIs. And when you have a guy that you can just kind of always go to and always say, hey, I have confidence in this guy's bat. And if we have a couple guys on base, I'm putting my money on him to be able to drive in 1-2 runs. So when you have a guy like that, it really just kind of changes the entire mindset of your team.
And yeah, that I think is a good thing that you just pointed out, is the consistency and the reliability. It's great to have a guy who can hit 30 home runs, but if he's a guy who's only hit, say 250 with 30 home runs, yeah, it's good because you've got some power, but he's not bringing much else to the table. That speed factor is huge with what Bryce Harper brings to the table. Even if he does lack a little bit in the batting average department, what he makes up for is not only his slugging, but also his on base.
Yeah. And sometimes hitters like that can hit into a lot of double plays. With speed like that, he can maybe outrun the occasional double play, which is, it's not a huge deal, but every once and again, there's always plays late season and playoff games where it's just like, that was the one changing. You stay on base, and then something happens. And obviously, he's got the speed to be a great base runner as well. So he's a very valuable commodity in multiple ways for the Nationals.
So Kevin, now tell us your thoughts on the 2012 Rookie of the Year, Bryce Harper. He's obviously doing great, but talk about maybe missing a few games. But all of a sudden, recently, he started to come into his own even more. Are the missed games going to be a factor?
What sets Bryce Harper apart is the way he plays defense. He's missing games because he goes all out on defense. He goes after those fly balls that will probably knock him into the wall, therefore injuring a shoulder or a knee, and that's why he's been missing time. And so as a manager, it's a double-edged sword, because you want those great defensive plays from Harper, but you don't want him out. But as a whole, Bryce Harper, I would hold back on the Miggy comparisons, because Cabrera hits 320, 330 on an average season. Triple Crown winner from a couple years ago. So he has the average and the power, whereas Harper does 270 is pretty good. I would like to see him in the 280, 290 range, but he definitely has the power, and he plays fantastic defense, dangerous defense. I would like to say that. But as a whole, definitely all-star, perennial all-star. Could see him being an MVP soon. As a manager, I would be wary of how many hits to the wall he takes, because he takes a lot.
Yeah, and what would you think of Matt Williams, the Washington Nationals manager? Maybe giving him breaks throughout the year, so instead of missing games in huge chunks, maybe his games played is closer to 140 or 145, but those breaks are coming throughout the year. 140 might be a little low, so I take that back. Maybe you're looking 145, 150. But to help avoid those injuries, Kevin, what would you think of the Washington manager maybe giving him some breaks over the course of the season?
Yeah, I would like to see that. Shout out to the Rockies, my hometown team. They do that a lot with their stars Troy Tulowitzki and Carlos Gonzalez. They're both known for injuries too. So what they have been able to do is give them days off, a couple getaway days off, so they get 2 days off. So what the Nationals manager could do with Bryce Harper is something like that. Every third series, maybe give him 2 days off instead of just the getaway day off, and that'll give him breaks to rest if he does get banged up, and that'll just give him time to rest and heal up. So that would be a great managerial move.
So I want to ask each of you this question. We only have about 2.5 minutes until break, so try to make your answers brief. But I am curious. I'm going to set the over-under for Bryce Harper winning an MVP at 2019.5. So you can either pick 2018, 2019, or 2020. Just give me an over-under. Or do you think he ever becomes the kind of player that can win an MVP with a guy like Trout looming? GJ, we'll start with you.
I'll go under. I mean, 2018 is fair. That's a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a couple years to kind of regain consistency and hopefully stay off the DL and just become more of a power in the league, because he's obviously shown it.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like a complete idiot because I just talked about Mike Trout. Obviously, Bryce Harper and Mike Trout are not going to be competing with one another for MVP awards as they play in different leagues. I promise I know baseball. I just have my head crammed with finals, I guess. So, guys, Nick and Mike, I'm going to ask each of you guys the exact same question. 2019.5 over-under for Bryce Harper winning an MVP award.
Definitely under. That's plenty of time to get it going. That's 4 years. As we see, he's on an upward track with all the stats he's putting up this year and previous years. I just think that if you limit his amount of games, you have him play at consistent paces, consistent times, he keeps continuing his up-and-up streak. I think definitely in the next 4 years he wins an MVP.
Yeah, I'm going to say under as well, because you look at, sometimes pitchers also win MVPs. However, you guys like Clayton Kershaw could potentially take it away from him, but I feel like Major League Baseball likes to keep the Cy Young over there and then the MVP in the field. So I'm going to say under with Bryce Harper.
All right, Kevin Gray, we only have a few seconds left, so same question to you. Over under 2019.5.
I'm going under again. I could potentially even seeing him winning it in 2016. That might be a little bold, but 2017, 2018 definitely could see Bryce Harper winning the MVP. So I'm going under.
All right, thanks, guys. We're going to head off to our last break of the year, and when we come back, we'll have our last segment of the year in which we have NFL draft talk. And we'll be talking about some stop day parties. See what that's all about. Keep it right here on 785 Live.
time I'm taking the upset.
And we will preview the KU softball series.
No, I'm not.
24 minutes strong here.
It is going to be foot again.
What we want to watch for this coming week in sports.
All of that on 785 Live coming up
Right now.
right now.
Here, we don't have an Adam Schefter, a Mel Kiper, or a Todd McShay, but we do have a Kevin Gray. Welcome into 785 Live alongside Kevin Gray. I'm Nick Cousin. Welcome back into 785 Live. 24 minutes strong here.
Kevin, Nick, Mike, myself, and Nicole, of course. Thank you so much.
Welcome back into the final segment of 785 Live of the 2014-2015 school year. Let's talk some NFL draft. That happened this past weekend. And the first thing we're going to talk about are the KU players. Given their struggles on the field, KU had quite a few guys show up in the draft. I believe 3 players were drafted. And then beyond that, a lot more got some invites as undrafted free agents. So we're going to start off looking at the guy everybody knows about, Ben Heaney. No surprise that he was drafted. So let's take a look at Heaney first. Inside linebacker, went to the Oakland Raiders in the 5th round. Played down at Hutchinson, Kansas. He was a Salt Hawk playing for Randy Dreiling down in Hutch. A lot of speed, and he's athletic for his size, although that size is a limitation. That speed does allow him to get all over the field, as you can see there on his scouting report. And then one last positive for Ben Heaney is the leadership factor. I mean, this guy put it forward every single day despite playing on, let's not sugarcoat it, a terrible, terrible team. The Jayhawks really struggled in his time here, and I'm sure that was not what Ben Heaney wanted when he was coming in, but he still stuck to it. A team can really use that leadership factor. Now, where does Ben Heaney struggle? He's a little too small to be a really strong NFL inside linebacker. He's pretty weak in coverage. He's probably going to get beat by a lot of the better wide receivers and certainly tight ends. And then we'll be interested to see how he adjusts to the NFL schemes. Really, really complicated to learn. But more than the complication is where's a player going to, or where's a defensive coordinator going to use a player like Ben Heaney? So that's the scouting report on Ben Heaney. Now let's move on to some more Jayhawks. Ja'Cory Shepherd, taken by the Philadelphia Eagles in round 6. He's a cornerback. He did play wide receiver, so you have no doubt that he's got the speed factor there. So some positives on Ja'Cory Shepherd's scouting report. You have some fantastic athleticism, great ball skills in the air, and great return skills. So Chip Kelly could really use him in a lot of ways. And don't count out his ability as a special teams player. So that's something he could be a force in special teams in the NFC East. Some negatives of Ja'Cory Shepherd, just like Ben Heaney, he is undersized for his position. So we'll see where that leads him. He could struggle to read some of the more advanced and complex defenses. That'll take some learning. There is a learning curve. And he doesn't always stay in front of his receiver, so you're not sure. He's certainly not going to be a number 1 cornerback. He's not going to stay in front of the likes of Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones, guys like that. So some good and bad of Ja'Cory Shepherd, but for a 6th round pick, not too bad. So we are heading now to Dexter McDonald, also a cornerback, also taken by the Raiders, this time in the 7th round. And so another Jayhawk heading out to Oakland, preseason 2nd team All Big 12 this past year. Some positives for Dexter McDonald. He's got, unlike the other guys, he's actually got quite a bit of size for his position. Really good ball skills, so he's going to be smart, going to be able to read the ball while it's coming at him as he's guarding a receiver. And he's already got NFL-ready hip movement in coverage, so it's not just the speed, it's the quickness. How much can he cut? The core of that body and the hip movement really important for a cornerback, especially in the greatest football league in the world. Some negatives, though. He struggles to change direction in coverage, so unless the guy's running a straightaway route, that might be trouble for McDonald. He also often loses his man during plays, so those good ball skills may lead to struggling to see his man, and he might be a little too slow in making adjustments. That's something that he'll have to learn. So he's got, again, like the other two guys, there will be a bit of a learning curve. Let's keep this moving. Quite a few more Jayhawks to go through. Nick Harwell, the wide receiver who transferred to KU from Miami of Ohio, he was on the 2014 Biletnikoff Award watch list. He did go undrafted, but found himself a spot with the Cowboys, so he'll have a chance to have Tony Romo throw him the ball. Some positives for Nick Harwell: above average hands. Obviously, it's really important to see the ball and to be able to bring the ball in. And he's got fantastic return skills. Once again, we talked about Ja'Cory Shepherd and his ability on the special teams. Look out for Nick Harwell to return some punts and kicks in the NFL as well. And got really good speed considering his size. He's a tall player, but he can move around too. So those are some positives to look out for with Nick Harwell. Now let's go to maybe some of the reasons that he went undrafted. First, is he big enough to be an NFL wide receiver? That question remains to be seen, and certainly is something Coach Jason Garrett is going to have to figure out down there in Dallas. He has had too many drops, which is something that he'll certainly have to work on. And he's not the greatest route runner in the world, so again, there are a lot of complexities to an NFL offense. So that's something that he will have to learn. So we've got 5 more Jayhawks, so we're going to go straight through those guys. Nigel King, wide receiver, he went undrafted by the was signed by the Miami Dolphins. Only player on the Kansas roster to leave early for the draft. Some positives of Nigel King: he's got great athleticism. He's got great hands, so he can hold on to the ball. And the wow factor for Nigel King, you might see this guy make a few top 10 plays there on SportsCenter. Now let's see some of the things that Nigel King can work on over his NFL career. Doesn't have a lot of experience, so that's something that he'll have to. The only thing that can help you with that is actually getting experience. That sounds ridiculous, but that's the most simple way to put it. He's got issues tracking the flight of the pass, so it's great to be quick. Great to have hands, but you're going to need to know where that pass is going. And he's not the greatest route runner in the world. So again, with the complex NFL offense, quite a few routes to run. 4 more Jayhawk players. Let's get to the next one. Jimmy Mundine's a tight end. He went to the Cleveland Browns, so he'll be there with Dwayne Bowe. He was 2014 midseason first team All Big 12. Jamae Mundine, I beg your pardon, I pronounced his name wrong. He's a great athlete considering his position, that tight end position. You desire a lot of speed there. He's great after the catch, so he can really turn on the afterburners there. And he'll be really good off the line as a tight end in the NFL. Some things that Mundine needs to work on: he's not the biggest tight end in the world, so that's something you don't expect him to grow much more. So that's going to be some trouble for him. He's not the greatest blocker, which if you're not going to be great as a receiving tight end, you need to learn how to block. And he's not the greatest route runner in the world either. So those are some things that Mundine will have to learn about. 3 Jayhawks to go. Trevor Pardula, the punter, Nick Cousins' hero, signed by the local team. So expect Nick to get some Chiefs season tickets. The Heisman Award watch list, I don't actually think he was on that. He was on Nick Cousins' Heisman Award watch list. Some positives for him. Great leg. Obviously, you want that in a punter. Left-footed, which means the spiral will be reversed, so that may give some trouble to return men. And great backspin on his punt, so they're not going to go end over end. That's something you absolutely want to look out for. Before we get into the negatives, another great positive is he was really quick on his restraining order against Nick Cousin. so he really gets things done quickly. So now some negatives for Trevor Pardula. Too many shanked punts. They go off the side of the foot. You're not getting good yardage, good field position from that. Inconsistency punting inside the 20. You don't want a lot of punts going for touchbacks. You want to pin those teams inside the 20, inside the 15, and inside the 10. And it's really difficult to break into the NFL as a punter. Often you're only going to have a couple times to showcase your skills in training camp. There is a luck factor there because you're not getting on the field as much as maybe some other positions. A couple more Jayhawks to go, so let's see what we've got. Tony Pearson, the little guy, undrafted, signed by the Chicago Bears. Don Fambro Award winner as KU's most unselfish player. He's a wide receiver. Some positives for Tony Pearson. A tremendous athlete, quite a bit of speed there, and some explosiveness. He's great with the ball in his hands. You're not going to see a lot of fumbles from Tony Pearson. And he also played a lot as a running back, so that experience counts as well. Great vision out of the backfield, an ability to read defenses and things like that. Some things Tony Pearson will have to work on if he wants to make the team. Not the greatest route runner. You're starting to see this this crop up a lot. You know, those are some things you need to learn with complex NFL offenses. Not a lot of experience as a wide receiver. As I said, he did play quite a bit of running back while he was playing in the NFL, or while he's playing in college, and doesn't have a heck of a lot of size. He's not very big. That's going to give him some trouble as a receiver. So let's go on to the last Jayhawk drafted, Michael Reynolds, defensive end. He was signed by the Buccaneers. Third team All Big 12 on the preseason awards list. Positives for Reynolds, once again, great athleticism. He's a really, really high motor, which if you're not going to be talented, you want to go strong, you want to go hard. That's something you're going to see out of Michael Reynolds. Above average speed off the snap, which you hope that doesn't result in some offside penalties, but that's something that Michael Reynolds can showcase is his quickness off the snap. Some things he needs to work on. He's a little too small. A lot of these KU players are undersized, which is why they went undrafted. So you'll have to see how he overcomes that. Not the greatest instincts in the run game. You got to learn to read running backs when you're playing a defensive end in the NFL. And could he convert to an NFL linebacker? He's certainly too small, as it says there, to be a defensive end. So what's he going to be able to do as a route runner, or as a as a linebacker in the NFL? So let's go to our last NFL draft segment. We're going to change it up a little bit because we don't have as much time as I thought we would. So we're going to start with Mike, then go to Nick, then go to Kevin, and then GJ and myself. Guys, give me your favorite player that was drafted out of the first round. So anywhere rounds 2 through 7, the player in this draft that you think will do the best. Mike and Nick, we're going to start with you guys.
Yeah, I think TJ Yeldon in the second round to the Jacksonville Jaguars is going to do very, very well. He was such a power runner at Alabama, pretty much took over games, and really is a guy that you can use to control the tempo and the pace of the game. And if you get up by quite a few points, I know the Jacksonville Jaguars are not very used to that position, but TJ Yeldon could be someone a little MJD-ish that could draw out the clock.
No surprise for me. I'm going to go with the Bears' first round selection, Kevin White. I think he's going to fit in great in that offense. Jay Cutler likes throwing deep balls, and he's great at running routes with the deep ball. So I think he's going to be a great addition filling in for Brandon Marshall this year.
All right, so Nick's favorite non-first round player was the Bears' first round draft pick. Kevin, what do you have to say?
Well, Mike took mine at TJ Yeldon, so I'm going to go with KU's rival, Tyler Lockett, out of K-State. Went to the Seahawks. He broke every receiving record at K-State, touchdowns, passes, or catches, receiving yards, and he's going to fit in well with Russell Wilson in that offense. So he's my favorite pick.
All right, GJ.
Well, Kevin took mine,
okay.
So I'm gonna stick to this wide receiver. I'm going to go with Doyle Green Beckham to the Titans. I really like that pick because, he was a guy, regardless of when you took him, you were going to have to take a risk, a little bit of a risk with him, but obviously enormous talent, #1 overall high school recruit a couple years back for Missouri, transfers to Oklahoma, isn't able to start right out and was ineligible, goes to the draft. He's been out of it for a little bit. I really like this pick. I think he could do a lot.
I'm going to go with Tevin Coleman, who was drafted out of Indiana. Similar, to KU, Indiana obviously not a great football team, but Coleman was a fantastic running back. I actually look at him to garner some Rookie of the Year votes. You look at a player like Jamal Charles, who was a kind of an undersized running back taken in the 3rd round there. So look for Tevin Coleman to do quite a bit of damage. He was drafted, if I'm not mistaken, by the Atlanta Falcons, where you already have, they've been known for some good backfields here of late. So now let's move on to our final 7-8-5 live draft. And guys, you need to make it as quick as possible because we are running up against the end of the show. So Mike, first to you, we're going to be talking about Stop Day. Who do you want to party with on Stop Day Eve? What sports personality? Mike, who do you think?
Well, first off, I think this is an incredible draft idea. I love Stop Days Eve. One of my favorite holidays of the year. Only comes around twice a year. So I'm going to go ahead and say Sir Charles Barkley. As I am an NBA guy. He's an NBA guy. We could, just talk about stuff if we wanted to. But he also seems like he has just that goofy personality that would just be really fun to get a few drinks with.
And I like hockey, and I went with the Russian spy, Alex Ovechkin. Came from poverty in Russia, came here, made lots of money. Now he drives Lamborghinis. I would be as fun in that passenger seat. No more fun than driving a Lamborghini.
All right, Kevin.
I went with Shaq. You can't go wrong with Shaquille O'Neal, Shaqtopus. He's a rapper. He's got the whole package. GJ?
Well, I picked 2. Pardon the interruption. I would love to chill with those guys just because they seem like they'd be able to have a good time, get a little rowdy, but on the classy side as well.
And really interesting stories that Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon could tell from their time covering sports in the 1800s. I went with Mark Cuban. He's worth $97 billion or some ungodly number. I actually think it's closer to $2 or $3 billion, but still, you could really party with that guy. Hey, I don't like this place very much. Maybe let's go to the Virgin Islands on your private jet, Mark. Hey, the Virgin Islands are boring now. Let's head off to, some foreign country. Let's just put it in the GPS and go. What a party that would be. And what did I say? With the private jet, you'd be back in time for finals. So we had Griffin Hughes, who is running the operation. He picked the winner. So Griffin, what'd you have to say about?
Well, I'll tell you what,
our
man,
winner?
This is a tough one. I mean, these are guys that you look at, and I would love to party with any one of these guys. Mark Cuban, he's nuts, he's crazy. Shaq is, Shaq. You got Sir Charles Barkley, who, I would just love to party with him. You can't say anything else. Not that he's especially interesting or that he's especially fun to be with. I would just love to see what he's like. And then, of course, Alex Ovechkin, you hear about him going in Lamborghini rides, with 200 miles an hour, doing all these, spending money doing this crazy stuff. But I think over everything else, I would love to party with the PTI guys, Tony and Mike, because I feel like they know how to have a great party. You can tell, they have great conversations, so you can talk to them about anything, learn a lot of things. But they also seem like really lively people who know a bunch of other people who are really lively people. So my vote has to go for Tony and Mike. GJ, you're going to win this one.
All right, so there you go. Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon. I do think they'd be a lot of fun. So GJ, with your victory, you have earned the right to close out the final show of the year. Take it away.
2-time champion. I'm good with these drafts. It's been a great year, if I can get it out. It's been a great year. Last show for Adam. Last show this year. So that'll do it. Have a good summer.